The Mario Party series has had a bit of a troubled legacy over the years. Arguably a highlight at any N64 party night, the series over the years have tried some experimental changes that has been met with a mixed reception. Which leads us to Super Mario Party, a title that aims to try and recapture the magic of the N64 games while also putting forward new party features. Does Super Mario Party return the series to its former glory, or is it a party crasher? Welcome to MojoPlays, and this is our review of Super Mario Party. Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The first thing you should be aware of is that the game only supports single Joy-Cons on their own, meaning it cannot be played in handheld mode when the Joy-Cons are attached, and there's no Pro Controller support. At first glance, I was concerned that this may have made the game uncomfortable to play, but I actually found it very easy to enjoy since the game's controls are thankfully rather simple, making the Joy-Con easy to hold. Super Mario Party doesn't skimp on game modes. There's quite a handful to jump into. To start off, there's the traditional Mario Party mode, which sees a return to the classic format from the earlier games in the series, i.e. lap-based boards with branching paths, a star to collect from a random rotating location, and playing a random minigame at the end of each turn. Yes, the dreaded party car from Mario Party 9 and 10 has finally been retired, in favor of bringing the series back to its roots.
Oh yeah!
You got a star!
And it's a very welcome return indeed. While boards are a bit smaller than previous entries, it's balanced out by having a reduced number of dice rolls, meaning that if you're unlucky and get constant 1s or 2s, you'll still be able to make some progress across the board. Though the biggest new feature is that on top of the standard 1 to 6 dice, each of the characters have their own special dice they can choose to use, each with their own risk-reward factor. For example, Dry Bones has a dice that is made up half of 1s and half of 6s, while Rosalina's dice has mostly low rolls but one side that has an 8. Furthermore, it's possible to recruit other characters as allies throughout the game and use their special dice as well, providing a better sense of strategy into games that have been absent from the series for more than a decade now.
Yay!
Oh yeah!
However, the format has some issues though. The allies that we mentioned earlier can really upset the balance of a match, as they stay with the player that recruited them for the duration of the game, and every ally gives the main player 1 or 2 extra space moves. This can mean that a player who may have gathered 4 allies can easily dominate the board over others struggling to land on the right space, and while some boards are harder to land on the right space than others, it can make matches infuriating for players at a disadvantage. There's only 3 playable boards, with a 4th being unlocked once the others have been played. While Whomp's Domino Ruins and King Bob-omb's Powder Keg Mine are both well-designed boards with lots of different routes and traps, the tropical-themed board Mega Fruit Paradise is particularly disappointing, as traversal across that board requires luck with landing on a specific space with warp pipes. Some fans may also be disappointed to know that the maximum amount of turns for a match is now 20 turns, though do keep in mind that 10 turns takes about an hour to get through. The next major mode is Partner Party, and this is a game changer for the series. This mode is a 2v2 mode with players moving around omnidirectional grid-based versions of the aforementioned boards instead of down the traditional paths. This allows for a lot of strategies between players to be formulated, as if both players in a team land on a star space on the same turn, the team ends up getting 2 stars.
Ready? Yeah!
But like the main mode, the star also moves each turn, so teams have to decide, is it better to stick together and get a bigger reward, or split up and cover more ground? The pacing of this mode is also faster than the traditional mode, since there's less downtime for players waiting their turn. Overall, since the mode offers a lot more strategic depth, Partner Party ended up being our favorite mode in the game.
Ready? Yeah!
But of course, the boards are only half the story here, so before we get to the other modes, let's talk about the minigames. If you're familiar with previous Mario Party entries, then you'll know that minigames are traditionally split into 3 different categories: 4-player, 1v3, and 2v2, and the offerings here range from decent to good, with a handful of great ones. There are quite a few creative standouts like Nutcases, which requires players to use the Switch's HD Rumble to determine which boxes have more acorns than others, or Stake Your Claim, which is a deceptive head-scratcher requiring players to figure out this biggest slice of a large rectangle.
Oh yeah!
But then you have less interesting games, like Feeding Frenzy, a game that suffers from imprecise readings of the Joy-Con's motion controllers, as the game sometimes has issues telling the difference between a light and heavy throw. I will say though that the ratio between good and bad minigames certainly leans more in the positive side, so overall, I'm pretty happy with what's on offer here.
Winner!
That is of course assuming you're playing with other people. Yes, unfortunately the AI of computer-controlled characters is still very questionable at times, especially in team minigames, and they'll often move around in really random directions to the point where it becomes comical as to how dumb they can be. In our sessions, playing against others was certainly far more enjoyable than playing alone, even if it's just with one other person.
Ready?
Unfortunately, the other big party modes are a bust. River Survival has 4 players all working together to paddle in synchronization down a river while catching balloons that trigger 4-player co-op games. But sadly, these co-op games lack any real challenge since there's no real foe to fight against in any of them, and their limited quantity makes the whole experience feel repetitive very quickly.
Ready? Yeah!
The other major mode is Soundstage, which is a gauntlet of rhythm-themed mini-games which all essentially boil down to swing the Joy-Con at the beat of the music. There's just simply not enough depth to this mode that it becomes nothing more than a side distraction. The final major mode is Challenge Road, which is unlocked once all the minigames have been played at least once. This mode sets you on a classic Mario-style world map, with each minigame acting as a different level. Some minigames require certain criteria to complete, and there's a harder master mode to unlock with each game once you've beaten the mode, if you're still hungry for more minigames. Speaking of the minigames, it is possible to play them online in what's known as a Mariothon, where you compete in a set of 5-time or score-based minigames. While the mode was available offline to try out, the servers won't be available till launch day. Once we've gotten a good assessment of that mode, we'll drop a pinned comment about our impressions about this feature. Overall, Super Mario Party, despite having a few issues, is still one of the better games in the series thanks to a return of game modes with a better emphasis on strategic play. It may not be the definitive Mario Party experience that fans were hoping for, but it's good to see that the series is now back on the right track. If you have the means to, get some friends together and give it a go. It's certainly capable of creating a lively game night.
Finish! Winner!
Check out these other great clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.